Hello, my darling friends. My darling, darling, beautiful friends. How I am so happy to speak to you again is beyond me. And I really am. I don't just say that. Trying to get my levels right, my microphone positioned in a way that makes me happy, that pleases me. It's not working all that well. And I'm sorry I breathe into this thing a lot. Like that. I don't go through the process and trouble of removing all of my breaths. I do take out most of my coughs and stuff because I do cough quite a lot. Right now, I'll probably cough more because I am smoking a cigar while I'm talking. So, yay for me. Or bully for me, as they say across the pond. Bully for you, old chap. I don't know. I don't know if they say that like that. I say it. So let it be written. So let it be done. It seems like my audio level is super low unless I put my mouth right on this fucking microphone. Weird. So this episode, I'm recording well in advance of when it's actually coming out. It is currently 4th, which means in a week from today, it'll be Halloween. Halloween! I used to get really excited about Halloween. I used to try and go do stuff. I would make events out of the month. I would go to haunted houses with my friends, parties, the clubs, if they were out and about doing stuff. Some of my younger friends, they'd want to go out to the nightclubs for the Halloween. Like Halloween was one I've been to a couple times, and it's a good time. Not as cool as I thought it would be, based on the advertisements, but not bad. It used to be my favorite time to go out and do anything. I like it. Obviously, when we would go out to the clubs and stuff, it was always nice to see the girls dressed in their slutty Halloween costumes. Like, occasionally there'd be legit, really, really good costumes, but most of the time the girls just go for the slutty this or that, and that's fine. I appreciate them. I appreciate their efforts, because God knows I couldn't pull it off, so bully to them. So as I mentioned, my friends, Jamie and Chris and I, we did recently the Telluride horror show, which is a horror film festival, independent horror film festival. Takes place in Telluride, Colorado. Prior to that, Chris and I only joined Chris. He did it himself, but I joined him this time. He did the Nightstream Film Festival, which is a streaming film festival. Started last year as a conglomeration between several film festivals that had to cancel the in-person stuff because of COVID. Well, they had it again this year because those same festivals, again, had to cancel because of COVID reasons, or maybe they just couldn't secure... They either couldn't secure the in-person stuff, or with everything being as it is, in flux, didn't want to risk it, which is fair. So he bought the Nightstream stuff again, 10 movies, I think, 10 films, and said, hey, come over. And I said, sure. I've been on vacation these last 2 weeks, and so we started it off with the Nightstream stuff, and he had already picked out what we were going to watch. It was 10 movies. We had until like the 14th or something to watch all of them. I don't care if I see all of them or not, generally. So I tell him, hey, feel free to watch without me, and I'll just come over as I can. Because I did have a lot of stuff to do, recording studio stuff. I thought I was done. Wasn't quite done. Mostly done, but whatever. I'm done now, finally. But, I do have stuff to do. And we ended up doing all of them together. And I will read off the names of everything we saw. And then I will tell you which of those, if you're a horror film person, which of those are applicable and which were actually good. I won't go into details about all of them. No spoilers. But yeah, I will say that this Nightstream this year compared to last year was terrible. Last year had a lot of good stuff, and maybe they just didn't have the options that... because of last year. Maybe there's not a lot of stuff that was made last year. I know a lot of stuff that was supposed to be released last year just didn't come out because they still want to put it in theaters. And maybe there wasn't stuff being made because of COVID. So that's a possibility. Maybe that's why what we saw overall was not impressive in any way, shape, or form for the most part. So before I continue, let me pull up my handy list, because I actually, for once in my life, prepared for an episode. Sort of. So this is just the list of the movies that we saw at the Nightstream. We saw a movie called To the Moon. I don't remember what these are about. So if you want to know more about Nightstream, just Google Nightstream and you can see the list of the movies. These are just the features that we saw. So we saw one called To the Moon, name above title. So To the Moon, name above title, Stanleyville. Still was interesting. Kind of liked that one. It was very weird. Started off slow, then got crazy. I'm still not sure what happened. Not real. None of these are really horror movies for the most part. There's some horror things. Most of them are dramas. Stanleyville is kind of a dark comedy, in my opinion. Stanleyville, worth a watch. It was interesting. Cosmic Dawn. We're all going to the World's Fair. That one got a lot of pretty rave reviews from people. I hated it, personally. It had some stuff that I did like, but I'll never watch it again. King Car out of Brazil it was kind of like a technology sci-fi drama, horror adjacent. It was okay. It was in Portuguese, which is nice. I like movies in Portuguese because I think the Brazilian Portuguese is a very beautiful language to listen to. It's musical. Traditional European Portuguese is also beautiful, but doesn't sound quite as musical as Brazilian Portuguese. So if something is in Portuguese and is from Brazil, I'm very much more inclined to listen to it that way and read the subtitles than I am if it's from Portugal and it's in Portuguese. So just a fun fact. Agnes I didn't like. It started off strong about a possessed nun and then changed course in the middle, and I'm still not sure. I didn't like it. It just didn't do it for me. Poser was actually pretty cool because it tied into like underground local music, not really even like heavy music of any kind, but just underground music. And it was kind of had some single white vibes to it. It was an interesting movie. Not horror. Again, these are not horror movies. One that I did actually like a lot was Shapeless, and that was the first one we saw. Shapeless is what it's called. And that was horror it was like a psychological thriller type of movie. Definitely heavy on the psychological, and not necessarily like, like a total mind fuck, but like the main character struggles psychologically and is very obvious in it. And you get to pick whether or not, it is what it is, or if there's more to it. The ending was kind of open. Sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. This one I didn't mind, like a choose your own adventure type of thing. But Shapeless is worth a watch. That's my Shapeless and Poser. Out of all of those, were the top two. Stanleyville was okay. The other ones I couldn't give a shit about. Now, if you're into crazy, weird movies, in French mostly, Cosmic Dawn, that's like I can't remember the name of the production company that made it, but they specialize in LGBTQI productions, so they're very female fronted, the whole crew, blah blah blah, or non-gender, whatever, gender non-conforming, whatever it's called. But the story was weird as shit, not gonna lie. There were a plethora of boobs, so if you're just looking for boobs, cool. And visually it had some interesting things, but holy shit, no. Just yeah. So Nightstream was a pretty much a big letdown as far as I was concerned. And like I said, for these festivals, if you listen to my festival episodes before, I don't do any of the scheduling or choosing of what we see. I leave that entirely up to Chris. And that's because then I don't have anything to, prepare for. And the letdown is less, probably. Whereas if I had known what to expect with some of these movies, or at least had in my brain an idea of what to expect and then saw what we saw, I would have been furious. So, yeah, that was Nightstream. So Nightstream was not so bueno. And like last year, we got to hang out in the basement and just chill, talk about the movies, which was good Because when you watch movies that aren't very good and all you feel like doing is talking mad shit to your friend about, one, why you're watching such a shitty movie, two, why people would make such a shitty movie, three, what the fuck is actually going on, it's nice to be able to do that as opposed to when you're in a theater with people who may be enjoying the movie. So that's the pro of doing that shit in the basement. So before into Telluride, I will say I did go see Halloween Kills with Chris just a couple days ago, Wednesday, or I guess it was Thursday. Halloween Kills, the follow-up to the 2018 Halloween remake, or reboot, not a remake, I guess, reboot, which is a sequel to the original 1978 Halloween, or the original Halloween. I can never remember if it was 78 or 77 then it came out, but that is technically the direct sequel to the first one, the first Halloween movie that was made. Halloween Kills is the sequel to it. Not confusing at all. And I really hate when movie makers decide that they need to go and fuck up all of the timelines and you have to forget about all of those other movies existing. It's dumb. Looking at you, Marvel, and really any other cinematic universe that may exist. Though they never did that with like Friday the 13th. Actually, they sort of did, but they never did it with like Nightmare on Elm Street. They had the Nightmare on Elm Street series and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is still part of that series, and then they had a Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which was terrible. So, whatever. So, Halloween Kills. I wasn't sure what to expect. I know the kill count was going to be high, as it should be for the name being Halloween Kills. And holy moly, no spoilers, but the thing about the Rob Zombie Halloween movies that I really liked was the brutality. I think, in the original movies, you had a lot of the suspense. The kill count was not a big deal. The violence was not overstated. It was mostly simple violence. And then Rob Zombie comes around. And, as the horror movies and horror genre progresses, you got to come up with new and creative ways to kill your victims in those. And sometimes you don't need to be all that creative. It just needs to be violent. And the brutality of the Rob Zombie Halloweens was what I liked about them. I liked, Taylor Maine, who played Michael in Rob Zombie's Halloweens, is like 6'8". He's a big motherfucker. And having him, thrash people was fantastic. I have no idea how tall the guy in the new Halloween movies are or is. He's not a short guy. I know the original Michael Myers, the guys who stood in the suit as the shape for the originals, they were average height. They were nothing big, they weren't super stocky built, or they were average and not imposing figures, which was part of what makes Michael in the originals, in my opinion, much more menacing, is that just an average build guy, not a terribly big imposing figure. Whereas you look at Jason Voorhees through the years, especially like when Kane Hodder took over. Kane Hodder's a big motherfucker, not crazy ass tall, but he's a big guy, stunt man. Big dude. And then when he got replaced in Freddy vs. Jason, I can't remember the guy who played him, but that's a big, tall guy too. He's like 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", something like that. So having a big, super huge, imposing figure, in my brain, I expect a high level of violence. And with the new Halloweens, he was a imposing size, but not huge. He wasn't abnormally tall. Wasn't abnormally, stocky built or anything like that. But he was a bigger dude, and the violence that came out of him in the movie, I think, was just really, really good. Really well done. The Rob Zombie movies, the violence was top-notch, top level. The rest of the movies, maybe not so much. I liked the first Halloween movie. The second Halloween movie, it was good until the ending. The last half of it, when it took a little metaphysical turn, and that's where I figured Rob shouldn't have gone that direction, but whatever. But Halloween Kills, there were some really poignant parts of the story as to mob mentality and the dangers of mob mentality, which, given the current climate over the last couple of years, just in social justice warriors and And I don't say that disparagingly, in case you're a social justice warrior, which I think everybody should be a social justice warrior to some extent. But they had some stuff in there about mob mentalities and, how that can go very badly, very fast. And I thought that was really well done, as obnoxious as it may have been to me at the time. When it was all said and done, I was like, oh, that was actually spot on storytelling of what actually happened. They had some really good humor in it too, which I didn't expect. Surprisingly good humor, and it was good. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I don't know. I'm still keeping my expectations low for Halloween Ends. I'm sure it'll be good. I'm sure it'll tie the rest of it together. But how many times do we get to tell the same fucking story over and over and over and over and over again, even with the little changes? So I just keep my expectations low. But anyway, go see Halloween Kills. It's worth it. It did really, really well at the box office. I think it's on Peacock TV. I don't know if they count that in the box office numbers. Peacock, the app, I don't have that. But go see it in the theater. If you don't want to venture out, that's cool. I get it. Peacock is where it's at. I recommend it. It's worth a watch at least, especially if you're into violence, because it has no shortage of that, that's for sure. And one last thing before I take a break and then get into the Telluride thing. My buddy Dale Strom, he's a musician. Known him for 20-ish years, maybe a little longer. He was the guitar player in a band called Bleeding Faith here in Colorado back in the day, the late 90s, early mid-2000s. I don't even know when the last record they put out was, but he's a good guy. He got into writing and recording a synthwave project, and I don't know how long ago he started working on it, but he just finished it up and put it out just a couple weeks ago. It's on YouTube. It's called Scream FM. Scream FM, like a radio station. And it's a full synthwave album. Kind of like Gunship, no vocals. And it's got a whole story theme to the album. But he did everything for it, minus a little bit of assistance from a couple friends. Wasey John, who's a killer vocalist. I have no idea if he's in any projects these days. I haven't talked to that guy in a very long time, but that guy could sing his ass off. Jason Smith, also from Bleeding Faith, known him a long time too, and he had me actually do a guest spot as a voice actor for the part of like a security guard trying to stop somebody from stealing. And, he gave me some lines to record. I recorded it and sent it off to him. It's been a couple months now, I think. I had no idea how it was all going to come together. I was really, really looking forward to it. And he put that out, and it's actually very, very good. Worth a listen. It's cool. It flows very well, very nicely. And in the description of the YouTube video, the video itself is nothing. It's just like the artwork for if he puts it out on an album or whatever. Looks, typical synthwave, fluorescent colors and whatever. But I recommend you go check it out. Scream FM on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and Scream FM, search, and you'll see it. I'm assuming he's working on other projects that's going to go on there for it. But it's pretty badass. I dig it a lot, and I'm not saying it just because I know him. I've only started a little bit getting into some synthwave stuff, and it's even for not having any vocals and just occasional like sound bites of spoken word stuff here and there, it's really, really good. I dig it. It takes you back. It's like listening to a soundtrack of an 80s movie. That's how I felt about listening to it, at least. And I've seen comments from other people that say similar things. So go check him out. It's awesome. I don't know if he's putting it out anywhere else yet for like iTunes or Spotify or whatever. He should. But I don't know if he is. So right now it's just on YouTube. Check it out. Scream FM. And if you leave a comment, say that Death Metal Disco Podcast sent you. The reach around, as it may be. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick break and come back, and then I'll regale you with stories of Telluride Horror Show. So you've been listening to me ramble on for quite some time about this, that, and the other.
So allow me to ramble on briefly about how I operate this podcast. There's lots of options for how you want to post and host your podcast and put it out into the world. I did a lot of research on mine, and for me, I decided to go with Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's free. That was a big selling point to me. Free is good. I like free. There's also tools for creation to help you record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer or your tablet or whatever you're using. I find that to be effective. So we got free, we got recording and editing, both big deals, because they are. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you. So it can be heard on Spotify, it could be heard on Apple Podcasts, it could be heard on Google Podcasts, and many, many more. That is a huge time saver because I don't have to go to each of those things to upload. So I like that distribution right then and there. And again, it's free. You can make money from your podcast if you're into that kind of thing with no minimum listenership. That could be cool. I think you should try it. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So if you've been on the fence about making a podcast and the only thing holding you back is how you want to host it or create it or whatever, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's worth it.
All right. Welcome back to the Death Metal Disco Podcast. I'm your host, Big Daddy. Or James. You can call me James, too, if you want to. I guess it's fine. So the Telluride Horror Show. This would be the 5th year that me and Chris have attended. The 4th year for Jamie, if you count last year, where we attended from the basement. This year it was in person. Had to provide proof of vaccination or get a rapid test there, negative test, hopefully. Whatever. It is what it is. And you had to wear your mask the whole time you were in the theater, unless you were eating, which is dumb, but, you know, again, I'd much rather go to the damn festival and wear the mask than, you know, do it from the basement. There's something to be said about going to in person and being around people that are of like minds, and you get to hear some conversations, you get to see, plus you get to get the fuck out of town, and that's nice. I like that. So anyway, we saw quite a few movies. We got there Thursday, and they had a couple screenings on Thursday that were not, I mean, they're part of the festival, but they're not small independent movies or anything. One of them is, but the first one we saw was Starship Troopers. And you might remember Starship Troopers from the 90s. Terrible, terrible fucking movie. But it was an intentionally terrible movie. And it's entertaining how bad it is. I haven't watched it since probably the first or second time I saw it when it first came out. And the second time I saw it, I remember not wanting to see it, but somebody else wanted to watch it, so we watched it. This time, you know, I wasn't so opposed to it. It's been so long. Mostly I was just excited to laugh at how intentionally bad it was made to be, because it is technically a satire, a spoof of, you know, space and war and some of the shit that they say in the commentary. If you've never seen Starship Troopers, watch it, because if nothing else, you get a good laugh. It's just so terrible. The fact they made sequels to it blows my mind, but whatever. Then we saw You're Next, and I fucking love You're Next. Just a great, entertaining movie. The humor is amazing. The violence is awesome. I can't love You're Next enough. One of my, it's up there. It's in my top 10 probably of favorite horror movies. It's definitely my favorite. One of my favorite. I don't know if you can call it a slasher. I don't know what exactly it fits into, but so that was Thursday. We saw quite a few movies, and we did for the first time the pig roast. We tried to do it the last time we were there, the year before last, and it was just crazy busy, so we ended up bailing because Sophie took over. But the pig roast was actually a really good time. It's included for pass holders. I think kind of anybody in the town can show up, but, you know, they have pork butt sandwiches, pulled pork sandwiches, and shit, that was the bomb. That is fucking fantastic at Oak. That place was, those sandwiches were amazing. We got done eating, and I really wanted another one, but I didn't try to go ask because they were big sandwiches, and I was not exactly hungry. I just wanted another one, so that was a good time. So let me go through these movies and talk about the ones that I actually liked. I will start with For once, we actually sat through a shorts block. We usually don't do any of the shorts blocks, but we did this time due to the scheduling, and it was for the dark humor, so the comedy shorts block, which if you're going to see the shorts, the comedy shorts are almost always a good time. They're usually 6 to 8 short films, and they're really well done, and they're funny as fuck. And I don't remember all of them that we saw. The best one that was in there was called Every Time We Meet for Ice Cream, Your Whole Fucking Face Explodes. And, yep, that pretty much summarizes the movie. It was funny as shit. Super weird, super original, funny as hell, though. So I like the shorts. There's one called Let the Wrong One In, and it's supposed to be a spoof-ish of Let the Right One In, a vampire movie. And I don't remember what country Let the Right One In was from. I want to say it was like Sweden or Norway, Finland maybe. Vampire movie. And those were good. That was a really good movie. The Let the Wrong One In is a comedy version from the writer-director of a movie called Stitches, which is about a clown. And that movie was fucking hilarious, gory as shit, from Scotland. So that somehow made it better. This one was pretty funny too. Had its moments for sure. Not as funny as Stitches. I think Stitches set the bar pretty high. But Let the Wrong One In was very entertaining. We saw one called The Medium. And I'm drawing a blank now where that one was from. I have seen it before. I don't know where. And that's the thing that I could not figure out. Chris asked me, he's like, are you sure you're not just having deja vu? I've never had deja vu about an entire movie. I knew everything that was happening in the movie. The only thing I did not know was like the last 10 minutes or so. So meaning I didn't see it, which leads me to believe that I must have watched it while I was at practice, because when I'm at band practice, we watch Pluto TV, and we have Pluto Horror or Pluto Terror on, and usually they show movies that are out already, but I swear to God, I've seen that whole movie, and I really don't. I think it was a Thailand movie. It's like a Korean-produced movie that takes place in Thailand, so it's all in Thai. And they had they called it a different island tribe or something that they belong to. It's a documentary type film. That one was pretty good. I like that one. Worth a watch. So The Medium, about how a shaman is possessed by that village's kind of god. So in Thailand, they have gods for a bunch of different things. And this particular village's god would possess their shaman. And they'd have healing powers and blah, 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 blah. We saw one called Off Season, and I don't remember what exactly that one was about. It was okay. It was kind of boring, as I recall. It was kind of about, it was about the off season on like the Florida Keys or something, and the island is kind of possessed, the people of the island, whatever. It was okay. It wasn't bad. It was, I didn't really care about it. I didn't hate it though. So, Exorcism of God had potential to be very, very cool. It wasn't terrible. It was, had its moments, very predictable. Very, very predictable. Typical exorcism movie though. Had a few good jump scares. I'll give it that. Some of the jump scares it had were pretty on point. The Spine of Night was an animated movie, much in the vein of Heavy Metal from the 80s, except not as good a soundtrack, nor a story. It was a anthology, like 4 or 5 stories within it, all animated. And there was one section of the third or fourth one. It was the second to last story, I can't remember. That one was actually pretty cool, just the animation of it. I'm not a huge fan of watching animated movies anyway, especially like the old, cartoon animation movies. I don't mind them, but when they're stories that are like serious, this is, this wasn't really a horror story so much as it was like a almost Game of Thrones-ish mythological type of thing. It had some crazy violence in it, which is probably why it went in as a horror movie, but it wasn't bad. It had a huge cast, though. Like, I recognized some of the voices, and then when they rolled the credits, It had what's her face from Xena, Warrior Princess. It had a very large cast. I was surprised by that. But yeah, it was okay. It was all right. There was one called Hellbender, which had potential, and it's made by a family. They call themselves the Addams family because their last name is Addams, not to be confused with the Addams family. Yeah. And we saw something of theirs the year before last. It was called The Deeper You Dig. And I've been meaning to go back and look it back up because I don't remember if I liked it. I think I did, except for, this family makes it. It's a husband, wife, and their daughter. And their daughter's a teenager. I'm not sure how old she is, but they do a really good job with the visuals. Like, their cinematography is really, really, really on point. The editing is really on point. They do a really good job of making the movie. It's the acting that kills it for me. They're not terrible actors. They're just not great, in my opinion. But for a family thing, and they do this for fun, and they even said they did this in the middle of last year's lockdown. They drove around in an RV and made their movie. It wasn't bad. They have some things where the daughter, and I want to say they had this in that other movie too, where they're in a band, and the daughter plays the drums, and the mom plays bass and sings. And they had like 3 or 4 clips of them doing songs in this movie. And aside from the fact I hate the music that they were making, it was like a really lame version of the White Stripes. The visuals they did for their little band practice stuff were actually really good. But, I mean, some of the cinematography stuff they had was fantastic for this movie. But I just couldn't. And the story itself was not bad. The story itself was actually pretty decent. It's worth a watch. I'll give it that. We saw one called Broadcast Signal Intrusion, and this was more like a mystery movie. I'm still not sure. It's more of a sci-fi type of thing. I didn't hate it. It was clever. I liked that aspect of it. Not really a horror movie. I could take it or leave it. Broadcast Signal Intrusion. It had some really good stuff in it, but it was far from my favorite. We saw one called Mad God. So anybody who pays attention to people who work on movies that are involved in like the special effects, or if like even Starship Troopers, they did the digital special effects for all the bugs. Phil Tippett is a guy, he's an animator, owned a studio for like claymation, stop motion stuff, and then moved over to the digital world for digital animation. Passed away. I don't remember exactly when it is, but this is why they showed Starship Troopers. But they also showed something he's been working on for roughly 40 years, and it's called Mad God. And Mad God is almost entirely stop motion claymation, and it's bananas, to say the least. I missed the last 5 to 10 minutes of it. I had to go to the bathroom so bad. Tried to be quick about it, but by the time I got out, the movie was over. So I missed the ending. I have no idea what actually happened. The movie itself, as confusing it was for what was going on as far as like trying to figure out the plot entirely, and I'm sure seeing the last 10 minutes probably would have helped. Visually, very, very cool. The fact it's all stop motion claymation, mind-blowingly cool. All of the characters and everything that is in it, Phil Tippett and his team at his studio did in like their spare time to make this thing happen. And when you think about the levels of creativity and patience and just the fucking sheer amount of time it took to do what they did for that movie, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And if you go to IMDb and just put in Phil Tippett's name, you'll see the sheer number of movies the guy has worked on. It's fucking unbelievable, the stuff that guy's done. But Mad God, I'm going to have to watch at least the last half hour again, see if I could piece it all together. But if you're into any kind of animation at all, whether it's claymation or digital animation or old school pen and paper paintbrushes animation, I highly recommend it because the technical prowess on that fucking film was top notch, top fucking notch. It was just really, even little things like eye movement. They did not skimp on any details. It was so interesting and so hard to believe that they could do what they did with it. So Mad God. As much as I didn't understand what the fuck I was watching, it was very, very cool. So now we'll get into my favorites. My favorites. Let's go with Black Friday. Black Friday is a horror comedy of sorts, and it's got Bruce Campbell in it. He is surprisingly not the main character, but his character is awesome. And it's got totally forgot the fucker's name now, from Idle Hands. What the fuck is his name? Totally drew a blank on his name, and I feel badly about it. Devon Sawa, that's his name. I thought he's been dead for this whole time, but apparently he's been alive and has been working out. And even though he's like a year or two older than me, maybe, he sounds older than me. He's in good shape. I was surprised to see that he was in a movie. I was surprised he was alive, honestly, but Black Friday, it's about Black Friday shopping, and it gets fucking crazy. And it's funny, it's very entertaining, and it gets a little sci-fi aspect in there. The violence was great, the humor was really great. Bruce Campbell was fucking awesome. It was a good movie. I enjoyed that. It was very entertaining. It was a good time. After that, I'm gonna say When the Screaming Starts. When the Screaming Starts is fucking hysterical. It is on par with What We Do in the Shadows. It's a documentary, sort of. Not a mockumentary even, but it's made to be like a documentary of a guy who wants to be a serial killer. And this film crew is like a award-winning documentary maker, comes in and they're like, yeah, we'll do this documentary on you. And they're making a documentary about what it's like to be a serial killer for a guy who has not killed anybody but wants to become a serial killer and wants to document it. So that's how it starts off. And it takes place in the UK. So it's, British humor abounds. And it was so well done. So very fucking well done. I highly, 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 highly recommend if you're a horror comedy person or even a mockumentary person, you watch When the Screaming Starts. It is such a fun movie. Surprisingly pulls off the lightheartedness along with the seriousness that it takes to be, a violent horror movie, because it is. It lives up to the horror part of the horror comedy, in all the best ways. And the comedy they did not do a really, really good job. The lead actor, can't remember his name now, but he was actually there at Telluride. He seemed pretty cool. Talked to him very, very briefly. But so as far as movies that are actually, the small independent horror movies that we're showing at the Telluride Horror Show, it's a tie for my favorite between When the Screaming Starts, which I just talked about, and The Feast. And The Feast was actually the first movie we saw on Friday. And it was from, not Ireland. No, it's from Wales. So it was cool in its own right because they spoke the native Welsh language in it, which I don't think before. And it's kind of like Gaelic, Irish sounding in nature a little bit. It sounds a little like those in German. It's an interesting language. I like listening to languages, and that's a language that I'm probably going to have to look into more. It was very visually well done. The cinematography was really, really good. It was slow. I'll give it that. It was really, really slow to get going, and you weren't sure what was actually transpiring. But when shit hit the fan in that movie, and it did, it was top notch. Like it was really, 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 really dark, and I liked it a lot. I'm still not entirely sure how to interpret the way everything happened, and I don't want to say too much because I think it'll give too much away. But I like that one a lot. So for me, it's a tie between those two, and then also The Sadness. And Actually, it's not a tie between those two and The Sadness. Those two tie for second. The Sadness, however, The Sadness takes the cake for me. The Sadness is from Taiwan, I believe, Taiwan or Hong Kong. And my God, that movie was insane. Asian horror movies, just like most Asian dramas, do a really good job of build-up and development. And this one also did, but it didn't take as long. So, like, if you ever watch a traditional samurai movie, there's a lot of drama leading up to, the last half hour or so where the battle happens. But there's a ton of drama before that. This one had build-up, but it was a lot more rapid. And technically, I guess if you want to, you can call The Sadness a zombie movie. It's not really a zombie movie. It's kind of like... it's kind of a zombie movie, but more like 28 Days Later, like a sickness. And it takes place during an already occurring pandemic. So, that's cool. But it's very interesting, and there are some things, at least to me, were left open to interpretation, like what was the cause for the sickness, as in why are some people so rapidly becoming infected, and why some are not. It was interesting to interpret that. But just the sheer insanity. They even told us before the movie that it pretty much has a trigger for everything. If you have any kind of trauma of any kind, the potential to be triggered by something in this movie is very high. So, I mean, there's some rapiness in there. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of gore. The violence does not stop based on gender. Lots and lots of shit. It was fucking crazy. There's like a 10-minute scene on a subway train that is just pure insanity. And it is fucking crazy. They did a very good job with it. There's one of the main antagonists in the movie. I don't know his name. He was he was normal, and then he was sick, and a phenomenal job of being a creepy, you can't really call them zombies because they're aware. Aware, they speak, they make threats, but they're out of their minds. And it was the Sadness. The Sadness tops my list for the entire festival. See it. If you're into insane movies and you're not going to be too off put by some of the triggers, I recommend it. The triggers are there though. Just keep that in mind. Especially the rape triggers, the rape song. The rape triggers were happening to like living people process of dying and the dead. It was men, women, everybody getting raped in here. It was fucking crazy. Like it was nuts. It was nuts. So The Sadness, I recommend it. Just hold on to your butts. And then finally, the last thing I will talk about was another movie we ended up seeing. We switched around our schedule. We weren't going to see it there originally. We switched it around and ended up seeing Antlers. And Antlers gets a big theatrical release here at the end of this month, sometime this week, I'm guessing, like this Friday, the 29th, I think. Produced by Guillermo del Toro. I thought he directed it. I didn't know anything about it. I hadn't seen any trailers or anything. I'd seen a little blurb about it. Watched anything. It's about the Wendigo, Pacific Northwest spirit that leads to cannibalism and various other things from the Native Americans. Very cool storyline. Just in general, I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was very intense. I liked that aspect of it. I liked that they did a good job developing the characters and just general suspense, and that was really nice. And It kept you guessing a little bit. Not so much, but you know, you kind of know what you're getting into, but you also don't. And that's what I liked. It was a really beautifully shot movie. In the Pacific Northwest. I'm sure they filmed it up there. I've only been up there once, up to Seattle, and this one took place in Oregon, I think. But it was beautiful. It was everything you would think Oregon, especially anytime in like the winter months where it's probably rainy. That's kind of what I imagine it looked like. In fact, I have been to Oregon and Washington I guess it was the fall, but yeah, it was really, really well done. But I don't want to call it my favorite of the festival, because technically it's getting a bigger release, so I kind of count that as its own category. Whereas the sadness was the shit. It was fucking insane. So, but Antlers was also great. So if you get to see Antlers in the theater, I think you should. If you get to see any of those movies, you should. Most of them. So that's my rundown of the Telluride Horror Film Festival. So I hope you guys all, this episode will come out on Monday, the day after Halloween. So I hope you guys all have a good Halloween weekend. I have no plans right now to a little shindig before last, which normally I think would have been popping, but there's been drama in that family that I won't get into here. And it was still a really good time, all things considered, but not the same. But I don't think I'm doing anything. I trying not to blow my money on all kinds of stupid shit for a change. And that's where So this wraps up season 1. This is the 26th episode of the Death Metal Disco podcast, and I'm calling this the end of season 1. I am going to I have an outline prepared of what I want to do with season 2 going forward. So I'm hoping that by the end of November I get stuff going for season 2, and we'll see what's up with it. But right now, that's where we are. I hope you enjoyed listening. Thank you. Please give me feedback. You know where to find me on the socials. I'm on Twitter at Death Disco Pod, Instagram, Death Metal Disco, Facebook. If you know me, just message me. You know the deal. You can even message me on the Anchor.fm app. I can even respond with a voice message in the episode, I guess. So I haven't done that, but if anybody wants to do that, I'm totally game. You know where to find me. I hope you all are doing well. I love you. Take care of yourselves and each other.